hey, look guys, 1 week Jari melon. There's some massive zucchinis that I'm actually trying to let get big on purpose. RuthAnn Zim, if you guys don't already follow her, she's amazing. I'll put links because if you don't follow her, you're missing out. She posted about mock pineapple with large zucchinis, which many of you had mentioned that when I was talking about baby sized zucchinis and what to do with them. And I thought, whenever you guys were saying it, I was like, I don't know about that. And then she posted it and it was like back to back. And you know how sometimes like repetition will just like wear you down on an idea you weren't sure about? I thought, well, maybe I'll give it a try, but I had been on top of harvesting all my zucchinis, so I had to let a few of them get big so that I could make some of that. So I keep telling you guys about how our weather has been unseasonably cool. Well, this week we've caught back up to normal and we're in the mid 90s. It's like 34, 35 Celsius or so. It's definitely warm. It's actually not super early in the morning right now. It's like mid-morning, so it hasn't fully heated up yet. I'm already losing my nerve to the job I came out here to do, but I'm gonna just suck it up and do it. I did want to give you another little recommendation. So I was at the Homesteading Festival at Roots Refuge Farm at the beginning of this month. It's been a few weeks ago. And my friend Leah came out. Well, actually, I've got a clip introducing her. I'm gonna show you a couple clips of that, and then I'll meet you here on the other side. Hey guys, what is up? I'm gonna show you a quick little look at this really beautiful house that we stayed in here in Leapers Fork, Tennessee. We're cleaning up, getting ready to leave now. So this weekend was the Homesteading Festival at Roots Refuge Farm. It is just one of my favorite things to do. It's just one of the highlights of my year to come to this. This was the second year. I was here last year as a speaker and this year. It's an amazing event. He's planning on doing it again next year, so definitely keep an eye out for that at homesteadingfestival.com. And I love coming to homesteading events. I am very much an introvert, so it is something that is, I'll say, there's an edge of discomfort to that much interaction, but it's also so worthy. Like sometimes very uncomfortable things are good for us. It's like what I feel about going to the gym, you know, like it's uncomfortable, but it's good. And I got to meet so many of you, moved my heart in such a tremendous way. But vlogging at a festival is impossible. So my friend Leah is here. I'd like to introduce you. Leah,
hello.
This little darling, so cute and beautiful.
Thanks for having me.
She actually flew in from California and met us here and was thebomb.com.
Oh, thank you.
And I asked her, because she brought her camera, to get some footage of the festival so you guys could maybe experience it a little bit.
It's a little nerve-wracking, guys. I'm just asking. I was like, oh gosh.
Hold on, our leftovers are heated up. I'm gonna pull this out.
I'm gonna get it.
Yeah, I got it. So we stay in Airbnbs so we can cook real food. Nice frittata. That's eggs from the farm, milk from the farm. I had to buy the potatoes, bacon, herbs, all that. But yeah, so I appreciate you doing that.
Hopefully it's good enough footage, otherwise you'll never see this video.
You were also the real MVP though, standing out there in the sun, taking photos for people.
It was so much fun.
It was amazing.
It was a blast.
What was your favorite part of this festival?
Hearing you.
Oh.
She did so good. It was like just preach the whole time.
It was really special.
Yeah, and coming back here and just spending time with y'all. It was great.
Oops. Well, I guess that's it. We'll see if it beats again. Yeah, this was fun. So Leah was here, Will and Taylor came with us, Daniel's here, my cousin Amy was here.
Yeah.
We stayed in this amazing house.
It was so much fun. It was
Very
just,
fun.
yep.
Well,
it was perfect.
Well, I appreciate you being here. You guys check it out here. You can have a little look at the Homesteading Festival. She's a doll, right? So she actually just released her video with like a lot of my talk from the Homesteading Festival, and I will put a link to her video too if you guys want to check that out. I kept trying to edit through that talk, and I have a great discomfort with public speaking. It's just one of those things. I just do it. Suck it up and do it. Sometimes that's what you got to do in life. And I like what it does. I like being able to connect with people in that way. I go to these things because I really genuinely care about you guys, and I love being able to connect with you in a face-to-face way, because so much of what I do is, I mean, like right now I'm sitting here in my garden. It's just me and Bear and the camera. But I know that this connects, but it helps me to be able to see. But she edited that really well, where you actually got to see the talk. I was having a hard time listening to myself talk. I would listen to it and be like, oh, you know, it just makes me feel nervous all over again. So you can go watch her video if you wanted to see parts of that. There are at least parts. Bear, what do you think? Even Bear thinks it's hot out here. Okay, so the task for the day. I would like you to take note of this garden bed. I would like you to take note of these tomato plants and these pepper plants. I do have some peppers ripening, but these are puny little guys. Because of having dealt with contaminated soil, I have seen many people send me messages being like, my plants are puny, is this contaminated soil? So look at these puny plants. Now in comparison, here are some other pepper plants. These were planted about a week or two ahead of those other ones. A little wormy on there. See how large, lovely, lush, lots of fruit. And these tomato plants were actually planted after those tomato plants. Also large, lovely, lush, lots of fruit. So the contaminated soil issue doesn't look like this. Contaminated soil causes plants to get really gnarly and twisty. Here you can see some curling. This is very normal. This is just a sign of stress on plants. We've had lots of rain, intermittent with, you know, a lot of heat. Like right now, it's real warm. And these plants are just stressed. That's okay. That's normal. Curling is normal. This is actually sickness, this yellowing. This is probably some sort of like blight. This is really common in a place like where I live. This is part of growing tomatoes, is having some measure of sickness. We try to pull it off, but you know, I mean, if I pulled all this off, there would be hardly any leaves on the plant. So it's fine. And they're not going to last super long like that. But when you're getting tons of rain and humidity, it just kind of comes with the territory. Oh, look at here. I'm waiting till this afternoon when it's nice and hot to pull some of these ripe tomatoes. Obviously, something's going on. Something is going on that's different in that bed versus in those beds. Because the plants just aren't performing as well. They're not as healthy. They're not as vibrant. They're kind of like a paler green. They are a little... I would say the sickness aspect, it's about the same on the lush plants. That's because of the rain and the humidity. And again, like I said, that's just part of growing tomatoes in the hot, humid south. However, the puniness, I'm using the word puny because I don't think they're necessarily stunted the way they were when I was dealing with contaminated soil. A lot of times when they're slow or puny or deficient, you just need to give them what they need and they'll start growing again. They'll catch up, they'll boost up. The contaminated soil caused a stunting that they were actually deformed, and there was no measure of feeding those that was going to create the conditions that they needed to grow properly. So the plants that were so terribly deformed that there was no way they were going to produce, we had to just tear those out. This kind of stunting, though, I believe can be amended. You could do a soil test and find out exactly what your soil needs. A lot of times if you live in a place where you have access to an extension office, you can take samples in and get soil tests. There are lots of different kits that you can get online and do it yourself. I actually usually opt to just guess. I know that's probably not even the most logical way to go about it, but it's how I have gardened. I really have not done a habit of soil testing. I don't like soil test every year. I don't, you know, it can tell you where deficiency is, but then when you come in like this last week and a half, 2 weeks, I think we've probably gotten like 10 inches of rain in this area. That can cause deficiency. It's not even the soil's fault, it's just the fact that there's so much water going through and the way that it's draining that the plants can't take up the nutrients that they need. So to me, I like to look at something and try to amend it before I go deeper. Now, if I were to try to amend this and there was a persistent issue with this bed, then I would go into soil testing if I weren't able to easily fix it. But what I'm actually going to do today is I'm going to take some compost, mushroom compost, and I'm going to top dress this bed with mushroom compost. Here's the pile of compost that I've got. It is not perfectly broken down. Still just a tad woody and hot. That's why we've been leaving it here piled. We got this for a few months ago from a local place that makes compost. But it does have a lot of nutrients in it, and I have top dressed a few plants just to test and make sure that it wasn't going to be an issue. I top dressed some bean plants because they show contamination fastest, and they grew really fast. They grew faster than all the other ones around it. So I'm thinking about putting a couple inches across the top of that whole bed here. I should see some alleviation of that deficiency. So I'm going to go find a wheelbarrow and a shovel and start moving some soil on this very hot day. So top dressing is literally just a matter of laying this down on top of the soil. If you ever see some fertilizer or something say side dressing, it's literally just kind of putting it down beside the plant. And since I do have some mulch on that side of the bed, this side's not mulched, which might also be affecting the health of these plants. I'm going to mulch with this compost a couple inches all the way across. I'm going to move that straw over and then lay a couple inches of compost down on that side, and then get some more straw and put it on top of there. My hope is that this is going to provide some nutrients here. You know, when we water or when it rains, the nutrients are going to wash down into the soil, hopefully leading to less compaction here. And then also just the benefit of mulch will help too, because that helps soil maintain its structure and its nutritional balance. All right, one wheelbarrow down. I'm gonna take a break in the shade and drink some water for a minute, cool off. When it's really hot outside, you need to be very mindful of caring for your body, because we all have a limit. Everybody's is different. One good heat stroke will affect you for a very, very, very long time, years. It will lower your capacity for years and years if you push yourself too far one time and get actually like heat stroke, heat sickness, where you're actually like down for the count for several days and potentially even have to be hospitalized, which for some of you don't live in places where that's reality. Here, very much reality. I don't actually think it's hot enough right now for that to be a concern. For me at least. Some people maybe, because like I said, we all have different capacities. I can handle pretty hot weather as long as I'm drinking water, but I do take frequent breaks to bring my body temperature back down a little bit. Look, Will brought some cucumbers from his house. I saw your jar of salt out here the other day. Ben was eating tomatoes and he goes, "Mom, you got any salt out here?" I said, "You know what? I think Will did bring some salt out here."
Yeah, I ate a couple of tomatoes, but it was good. Cheers.
Alright, straw's moved over, so I'm going to go down this side and give it a layer of this as well. Alright, I got the mulch over here. My camera actually overheated, so I'm going to have to take it over here in the shade to talk to you guys. The next step is going to get the straw mulch, cover this whole thing up, maybe put an extra thick layer on here to kind of lock in this compost I just put out. I think I said mulch about the compost. Some people do actually consider top dressing compost a mulch, but here it's not quite sufficient. It'll just dry out. You have to put something else on top of it. Now, since I'm just treating instead of testing, there is some measure of variation in a garden that you're going to see. Like, you'll plant a row of something and for some reason, like, the plants on one end will be bigger and more lush than the plants on the other end. And it's pretty normal to have multiple raised beds and one of them might not be doing as well as the other ones. And that could be taking the brunt of prevailing winds. That could be the way the sun falls, that could be the way the water drains. You know, in some places you'll see plants that are larger because they're on the downside and they're getting more water. When you have a lot of rain like we've been having, the ones who are getting more water may be struggling more for whatever reason. So some variation is fairly normal in a garden, and this isn't a huge deal, the thing that I'm amending here. But if I could get those plants to kind of pop into greater health, they will be more fruitful and I'll get more harvest. And that's why my go-to when I see a plant struggling is almost always a new layer of compost and more mulch. It's right out of the gate, just as a blanket first thing, because really for the most part, that's not going to hurt anything. Like if I'm wrong and that's not the problem, it's not going to compound the problem. Yes, you can have too much nitrogen, and oftentimes aphid infestations are a case of too much nitrogen because the plant's actually leaching it, which attracts aphids. So there are times that you can have too much nitrogen, but it's usually not quite the make or break deal that too little nitrogen is. So I kind of err on the case of a blanket solution of compost and mulch. Many times that does the trick, because most of the time a good nutrient dense compost is going to give them a jolt of nutrition, and the mulch is going to help the soil build its structure. The reason I do compost and mulch is because I'm not just trying to give my plants what they need, I'm trying to grow healthy soil. Healthy soil grows healthy plants, and compost and mulch are pretty much always really good for soil. Now occasionally you're going to have instances of like a severe imbalance, but most of the time that's not the case. Occasionally you're going to have instances like herbicide contamination in your soil. Most of the time that's not the case. So now I'll just kind of sit back and observe. I am going to finish mulching that with straw. I'm just going to wait till it cools off. My camera's overheating and frankly so am I. So I find either high tunnel jobs in the shade cloth, or some sort of shady job in the barn job or in the kitchen job during like the 4 hours of afternoon that are the hottest. But once that has the thick layer of mulch on it, I'll just observe it. And that mulch is going to help regulating the temperature and the moisture of the soil, help the structure, and then of course the compost is going to add nutrition to the soil and to the plant. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. Go check out the people that I linked. I'll put the link to RuthAnn Zimmerman's page, her social stuff, as well as Leah's. Her channel is called Homestead-ish, and I'll put a link to her homesteading festival video. Thank you for hanging out with me today. I bless you. Until next time.